excited to be here. It feels like forever. Welcome, first of all. Welcome. It's really good to be together tonight. I'm excited because I'm seeing, and I hope you are too, seeing things start to take shape a little bit. And I'm going to talk about what our next steps are, but we are really in good place. And I know tonight we're going to make more progress. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being committed to the long haul. I was saying, I think we've got 2 meetings in May, and then we'll present to the board, and I think we're in very good shape in terms of being done and having a quality product to present. Since I saw you last on March 4th, March 5th, I went to a place I've never been before. I went to Australia and New Zealand, and it was so fun and so cool. It was amazing. So I feel rested, and I am so excited to finish up this, but with great memories in my head of terrain that I've never seen anything like before. It was really exciting. So that was good. Anyone go anywhere on spring break and do anything fun?
Spring break seems like
I know, a long time ago.
years ago.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, it feels like so long ago. Well, I know I take the cake on distance travel, so.
It traveled for all of us.
As we begin tonight, I want to talk through what we're going to focus on tonight. We're going to just quickly review like we always do and do a quick icebreaker just to get your heads around the draft strategic plan. And then we're going to, number 2, just review the meeting minutes, but they're very short this time. We got so much done the last time we were together to create this second draft, so that's really the bulk of the minutes. We're going to spend the abundance of time in step 4, which is trying to really firm up some concrete decisions regarding our pillars, strategic objectives, and what I'm calling action plan areas. Like really get the meat down so that the next time we can finalize a little bit more. And just to give you a vision of where we're going, once we get the pillars, which really the big question is, do we like the term experience? We'll get to this, right? Do we like student experience, community experience? If we like that, we know we've got 3. We've got a question, do we have a 4th pillar on facilities, operations, etc., or not? We'll make that recommendation tonight. And then we start looking at, well, so how many objectives do we have under each of those pillars? Is that too much? Is it the right stuff? And so tonight we're going to have good conversation about that. But I got some good feedback after the last meeting saying, even though the group is a little smaller, we've got a couple of people who can't be here tonight. 2 of you said, I think better in small group than I do in large. So we're going to do some work in small group and then come back in large groups so that I honor what I think is really good feedback. I don't talk well in front of 10 people. I like to get my thoughts down and then talk. So, and then we'll just do a little bit of goal wording, because that will be the thing we'll finalize next time, and we'll get started on that. You already gave me some great ideas that I incorporated. So as I welcome you, tonight, I just think we're at that point of the process. Number 4 is the one I wanted to highlight. We have 2 more meetings, we got to stay engaged and get this ready, and then we have to start thinking about how are we going to present this to the board? What's that going to look like? And I'll work with Ron on getting a date, and we'll start getting that solidified so that we know where we're heading that way. But I also want to focus on number 5, be an ambassador for the district, for the plan, and this process, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as we move forward. So we got a lot to do tonight. Here's what I'd like for you to do. Let's try to split up this way and cross the room. So here and here, here and here, here and here, here. Just let's cross the room. And let's just discuss this. Stand up. Take your draft of the strategic plan, and it's draft number 2. I put it on your place. And just talk. What's one thing you like in the draft? And what's a question you have? Just let's get percolating a little bit around that. All right? So let's just have some conversation. How about 3 minutes? Because this is real fast.
Hey, good.
And if we have that number, we'll make it work.
I think so. We go across.
Hey, Ben, good to see you. Joanna.
So, or
Do you have a partner, Pastor AJ?
Pastor, you want to jump in?
You like the plan?
What do you like?
Some students.
Well, that made me feel good.
Like, when I was every other week, I felt very, like, mentally in the process, like I was thinking about it, and I had spent like a month, 5 weeks, like, the email came out, and I was like, oh, like, I should really try to look at that again, because like, I feel very, like,
Me too.
disconnected.
And I
A lot
missed,
has happened since
I missed
the
the last, I missed the last one too.
Sure.
So it's like,
What is this that we were seeing?
I mean, like, it's, all this stuff looks familiar. It's just like structured now.
Yeah.
That's all.
One thing that we worked on last time was like the rephrasing of these, and I like them being about the different experiences that people have with our kids, like framing it as a student experience, and then thinking about what that is, as opposed to like, previously it was called like academic, still kind of this, but it was like,
My question is,
like, Joanne, what was it called before we called it experience? It was like curriculum and instruction, or like, what was
Teaching,
it?
I call it
learning.
teaching and learning, but
Okay.
in the previous plan, it was,
Brian missed the last meeting, so I was trying to
but I
remember
could see
the.
it somehow, but I have to look at my notes.
It's okay, it's not critically important.
It was
Yeah.
really dry, teaching and learning was
Okay,
what I was
teaching and
calling it.
learning. We had employee engagement, that was like the employee one.
And then we just were calling it community engagement.
Right, and then we had community.
I like the parallel structure of experience.
So we talked about like,
adapt and evolve.
everything we're talking about here is like, goes into what our kids experience, like, it's not about teaching and learning, but like, when a kid comes to Merton, like, what is their experience? It's the second bullet point, like number 2,
So I
I
think it's,
think my question is.
once you deploy, okay, you're done, you're here to the continuation of investigating and investing into, I guess, for us, how we want to do that is
Like, that was part of his plan,
because
for
it
being
costs about
elected.
Yeah.
And so as we think about like personal growth for all students, like,
here's what 4K teachers do.
what can we say about personal growth for students that's not academic based, that is going to be matched by the board? We have one open, I think it's, like, I don't know if anything in here that is not academically specifically tied is going to pass the level.
Yeah.
Say that right, I can't.
Well, I mean, you make a good point.
That was my
So are you suggesting that maybe we just,
work through that, because it's something that can
should we just change the wording of this? Should we take it out altogether?
I mean, I think when we tabled it at that meeting, what was really discussed is like, we don't wanna hide it. Either we're doing it, we're calling it what it is, or like, we're not doing it. Cause I think it doesn't serve our community well to like say, no, we're not doing like emotional growth for our students, and then try to sneak it in there. Like, that's not the right way to go about that. Like, we need to be transparent about whether we're doing it or not doing it. And so, if it's a community, we're saying that's not what we value time being used for at school, like, then
because here's 60 to
we have
65.
to just acknowledge that, and like, move forward, but then I don't think we part of the plan. Like, I think anything we put in the plan, we have to acknowledge, like, this is what we should spend time on. And so I want the plan to really match what the community stands by, which is going to match what we actually do. And I don't wanna like hide behind foggy wordings of things just for the sake of, like, our strategic plan shouldn't sneak anything through, right? I think it should be as clear to our community what we intend to do in the next 5 years as possible.
Right. Yeah.
All right, come on back and sit down.
Possible, is like what we're doing.
Come on back. This was not meant to be a time when we answer questions. It's really just getting our head back in the game, as they say. So, with that, thanks for getting your head back in the game. Oh, I'll take that. No. We're down a couple of things just tonight. All right. Let's just, I have the minutes in front of you, and as I said, the minutes to me are fairly short because the minutes, really the whole meeting last time was creating this. I mean, so that's really the crux of the minutes. I think I got the attendance right, but if I didn't, let me know. Let me know.
There is one, thing. No,
Yes,
it's
please.
very minor.
No,
I'm
please
just
tell
looking
me.
back, was it March 5th or was it March 6th? Because one of these would be incorrect.
I,
I double checked the agenda.
I'll look at my calendar.
So it's very simple.
It was Tuesday,
5th.
5th. I'll correct it. Thank you. And the other thing that I wanted to tell you, and I'll remind you at the end, we put on May 7th and 21st last time we were together, just so that you mark your calendars. Okay, so here we are. Now, I really wanted to give you a quick update and get our head around the strategic plan, around the survey, one more time, just because of you being an ambassador. So here's what I want for you to be able to leave in good conscience and be able to say. As a strategic planning committee member, I want you to be able to look a staff member in the eye, a colleague, the community, and say, hey, as a committee, we asked, we heard from over hundreds of people, and we listened. I want you to be able to say, we asked, we heard, we listened. And in good conscience, I think this is just a good wraparound so that you can feel comfortable saying that. Because I want for you to feel comfortable with that. So let's just review the survey findings, just real quickly, those key findings. And as you're doing it, because the next thing we're going to do is break into some small groups and look at the student experience pillar. If we're missing something, now's the time to say, whoa, Joanne, and in small group, I feel like STEAM isn't represented. Or, last time it felt like we did a lot with STEM and now I don't see it. Or I need you to be able to say, when you work in small group, I think this might be a blind spot, right? So as we review this, and I know the print is small, let's just take a look. So I always think that a strategic plan really needs to focus on strengths, because they got to be a strength because you were strategic. So it's not like because these are strengths, we don't need to do anything in the plan. So I know this sounds obvious, but this one is about a committed and hardworking staff. Do we honor that in the plan? I would say the answer to that is yes. We have a whole pillar on the employee experience. Student academic achievement, do we have that in the plan? It's the first part of the student pillar. The next one, the focus on science, technology, engineering, and math is a strength for the school district. We don't have to talk about it now, I want to just spur you. Is that addressed in the draft right now? Students have multiple opportunities to learn and grow through curricular and extracurricular options. The school district benefits from a small community feel. So I think that there's a lot of confirmation of things that we heard in the strengths and we put in the plan. If you have ideas, percolate on it and we'll bring it to small group. The next one is really important because this is what our community said were key opportunities. One, retaining high-quality educators, employees, and administrators. So do we call out retention, right? Do we have a plan around that? Building and enhancing the school and district culture. Do we have an action item around that? And we do. I think some group was just talking. Is it big enough in D? Does it look like it's buried? It was like it was hearing someone talking. In addition to teaching academics, it's important for the school district to increase the focus on student self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. This might be a good time. Could we do an update on where the board is at regarding personal growth? I think we're in a little bit of a conundrum in that personal growth is in the mission, right? And I don't know if it's our job to define it. I mean, we're in a spot, we have to figure that out. Ron, you want to give us an update?
So the personal growth, the social emotional part of the child is something that obviously we talked about last time, was tabled and through the development of the board and through some research and some recommendation. The board did settle on for this upcoming year for grades 6 through 8 to change. It used to be just a complete SEL or social emotional learning opt-out, opt-in or opt-out. The board did make the recommendation and the change to just make that focused around second step curriculum. So our second step curriculum is basically a foundational social emotional learning curriculum that we start actually in grades in 4K, works this all the way through 8th grade, but in grades 6 through 8 now, it is now optional just around second step. What this allows our administration to do is to really continue to expand ACP, which is an opportunity or an option surrounding SEL learning. Allows our administrative team to address any social emotional learning concerns about relationships or trust, engagement, working with students on a day-to-day level too, either in a small group or even in a whole group opportunity as well. So it does open up some opportunities, but ultimately the SEL component of the curriculum is now the one that is focused in on to say parents can either opt in or opt out of that. So, and we'll continue to work as an administrative team to make those, so once the students opt in, they're into that, and then the students who opt out will get more of an ACP experience too as well. So,
What's ACP?
academic and career planning, I'm sorry.
So will a parent have to choose one or the other?
There will be, yes, they will, yep. Now, they will have an ACP experience.
Everybody has ACP.
Everybody has ACP, the foundational ones.
Okay.
The additional things that would be considered ancillary, again, not, and that's what we're really working through is okay, it's not gonna be able to build, it would be an extra, kind of like an elective course. And that's kind of how we're building it. It's elective for more ACP or elective for second step.
Not study hall.
Not study hall, not study hall.
Yeah, I think that's a good decision,
Yep.
personally.
It met us in the middle, it really met us in the middle.
I think when we come back for the next meeting, I will bring with us, because I know second step, I'll bring the big units of what that is, and I'll also bring the ACP big categories. And I think maybe we want to look at that for, I think we want to, if we're going to use the term personal growth, we want to anchor it in what we're doing in those areas, you know, and focus on that. So maybe I'll bring that. Yes.
Steve already laid it out in a couple presentations.
Oh, great.
So you might ask him for his slide, it's a nice
Oh,
little layout.
thank you for your slide.
We can work with you and make sure that we get that.
Yeah, that would be great,
information.
because I think that it would be good if we, you know, like I say, personal growth is right in our mission, so we need to make sure that we are, I don't think we can just blindly not address it, but we want to address it in a way that is productive, right? And not,
And I think the question is how do you assess it, address it, and monitor it in the because personal growth can be academic, right?
yes?
That's easy. We've got either iReady or some sort of, we've got assessments that can continue to track growth and progress throughout the district. That's the easy part. But that's only one part of the child. How do you measure, grow, and develop that other part? So, and the second step curriculum is in its last year of purchase too as well. So the district, after the 24-25 school year, will need to address through the curriculum cycle.
That's a good option too.
So that's really where we have an opportunity to reimagine what that might look like and to continue that conversation.
And so,
Can you talk, I'm just making sure I understand correctly what's on the board. So where it says not an opportunity, like 6% of people said this is not something we should focus?
Yes.
Like, okay.
not an opportunity to pursue.
So they're saying that the most people would like us to pursue is what's on the top, the retention, the 0.94 is the one we should most pursue?
I know that that looks like it's flipped, but that was in essence, yes, that is correct. It was on a 1 to 10, and so that was
So
the most
lowest
important.
percentage is the most
In
important?
this one, yes.
Okay.
So this is how people ranked them.
Opportunities for improvement.
Correct,
One,
which
two,
is the
three,
most
4, 5.
important, or who would say, don't do it? Here's the ranking, you know, on a 1 to 5, with 5 being the most important.
So only 6% of people said don't do it.
Correct, right, that would be the other way, to take it out. It's not, it's not,
Because at the top it says, please rank with 1 being the most needed strategy. So then I'm thinking the score, the 1.86 is the most needed because it's closest to being a number 1.
I know, but I think that's my typo.
Okay.
I think it,
Also, I think you get your percentages on rankings,
Yep.
different than you get your percentages on the 1 to 5 language scale. So I'm wondering if that's.
Brian explained it, and
Yeah.
it was kind of a flip
I know
analysis.
we've got a flip, but I know that this one is the one that was the
That
most
was ranked the
important,
most
ranked the
important,
high,
right.
ranked, ranked as the highest, and I know it's confusing. You know, and this, oops, sorry,
It works, go ahead.
Very smart.
Yes.
Remember?
it is a smart board.
A half hour ago, we were trying to get it to work.
Then we go into, you know, preparing for growth in the student population. And that's still out there for us to determine if that needs to be in the plan. And then the school district should elevate efforts to communicate the successes, activities, and opportunities in the school district. So again, I think that that's addressed in our community experience piece. Any questions?
I just want
Yes.
to clarify from,
Yeah.
offer clarification. I feel like what we did for the school board last month takes out some of the impediments to following what that says there. So our ideas about developing the whole child, the things that we've talked about here, that because we had that very vague, broad policy that we have rescinded, that opens the possibility of us continuing to have the conversation that that policy would have gotten that way, so.
Correct.
Everybody knows that.
You know, here we have, and then these were tighter, right? You know, all between 2.76 and 3 point, so all of these have pretty equal weight when we talk about what's important for us to do for students. One, have a wide array of student programming, right? And so we've got that in there in terms of mission-driven curricular and extracurricular experiences. We'll focus on a curriculum that enhances academic excellence, inspire curiosity, continuously update the curriculum, and increase the focus on STEM education and mathematics. So again, as we look at what's in the student experience, think about where do we hit the mark, where might we be missing the mark in terms of what people have. And I also want to say, and I don't think I'm extrapolating too far, in the student experience 2A is really where we're focusing on this idea of wide array of programming, right? I mean, personal growth is met when we offer great systems of support. And that's something we talked about in here as well. In 1C, I think really focuses on that. And then here, when we talked on staff, and again, higher ones, the most important one was improve the salaries and benefits for staff. And again, I think this is something, and Ron, let's talk about this. Do you mind us having a conversation? And this I really will own. The way I put this in here about deploying an attractive compensation and benefit plan makes it seem as if right now it isn't attractive. And I don't know if we can say that. You know, and so I don't know the wording of that, but I want to be really careful that we aren't setting ourselves up for people's expectations is, whoa, we're going to be giving the farm away. So I just want to be really careful about how we word that, because when we say deploy, to me that makes it seem like, well, we aren't doing that now. And I'm not sure if that's an accurate statement, but I don't know the right verb. And this is one that lives and dies in verbs to me. So I don't know, you want to talk about it?
No, thanks for addressing that. And again, it's one of the things that as a district we continue to review, and we are working more regionally to make sure that we can define not only teachers, because teacher salaries are easy because there's a state database. Unfortunately, that does lag behind about 7-8 months. So we don't find out what other teachers are making around the state in the 23-24 school year until November, December. That doesn't help you to make salary, to actually to
Right.
help you in February when you're talking about negotiations, budget planning, and or whatever it is. And there is no opportunity right now currently in the state of Wisconsin that allows us to take maintenance, cooks, transportation, to put everything into one big database. So we are working more regionally to develop some analytics that say, how are people being compensated? So we can take a look at our region, CISA 1, CISA 2, whatever it is, and say, okay, if you're a 4K instructional assistant, this is what all the 4K instructional assistants make within a 10-mile radius, or you set the parameters. So that's something that we're building towards, that hopefully when we do a comprehensive analysis of a plan for not only benefits are easier because you can make phone calls and say, hey, what's your health insurance offering? You know?
Right.
But the compensation outside of contracted employees, administrators, and teachers is very complex and very difficult to gather. So,
I just don't want to put us in a situation of overpromising and then
Correct.
having people be disappointed in that work.
what I told Art is basically salaries and benefits operate between 60 and 65% of our budget.
I agree that we want to do verb there. Is that something you want to do in the smaller?
We're going to do it in
groups?
small group and then come back at it. So the biggest thing that I want for you to, as I said, you know, I think your job is to be an ambassador. And when we get down to the point that we're in front of the board, or you're talking with the community, I want you to feel comfortable, not using my words, but to say, hey, we deployed a survey, we did focus groups, we really worked hard to listen, we obtained input from over, you know, hundreds of people, and we put that input into what we feel is the best plan possible. It's not a total one-to-one correspondence, meaning it's not like everything that we heard, but the key themes have been identified. Give me a thumbs up if you would feel comfortable supporting that based on what you know right now. Yes?
I just got a question before we get into small groups to go any further. With the operations pillar, can we agree or disagree to eliminate that?
We're gonna have a conversation about it in the next 5 minutes.
All right.
So let's look at this. I just want to tell you that we're going to do an activity that has 4 steps now around this plan on a page. The first thing we're going to do is just review it. I'm just going to review what's there so that we get, you know, that sense of what is in it. Number 2, then we're going to break into small groups, kind of like you said, and go around, and everyone's going to weigh in and write on the poster paper that's there around what ideas do you have, would you suggest crossing this out? And if people use different pencil colors, that'll be great, because then we can take it. Then we'll rotate through the 4 possible pillar areas and discuss as a large group. So what was on the page? What do we want to discuss and finalize? And then whatever pillar that you started with, you'll end with, and that's where we'll try to present and get a sense of what is that going to look like. So we're going to do a rotation, a discussion, and hopefully a finalizing. So let's take a look at this. So as you get into small group, this should be familiar to you. I think you just want to keep your mind, and I'll keep this up on the screen, open to these questions. Do these objectives really express the key work to be done? I hope they do, because I think we did a good job of that last time, but are you feeling, kind of like you said, is it hidden? Do we need to elevate some, or you know, what is there that way? Does it support the survey and focus group results? I hope that the answer to that is yes. I don't think we have anything out of the realm. Not so sure on STEM, but I'll come back on that. Does it advance the mission? Do they take approximately 5 years to accomplish? Which is kind of getting at what we're talking about. Is it operational work? In the next one, number 5. Is it operational, we'd be doing it anyway? Or is it really strategic, that it's deep work, big work? Are they clear and not redundant? There's a couple that I think could be redundant, that we could merge into one, potentially, I don't know. And then, are we missing? Do we have a blind spot? So that's kind of what I want you talking about in small groups. Can you live with this? Is it where you can give it a thumbs up, each of the pillars? Or are you now saying, ooh, you know what, I think this would be better. We're at that point where we're refining. So let's just quickly look at these. Student experience, you may not remember this, but the time before last you gave me some wording, and with that I just attempted for that pillar to put a goal together. Later tonight we're going to work on it. Inspire curiosity, personal growth, and academic excellence for all students. By the way, that's not particularly creative, that's the mission, but I do think that's why you have a strategic objective. So we can talk about that later. We talked about academic growth, calling out, and enhancing the student experience. Both of those. I'm not sure, you know, and again, think about it. We talked about then a curriculum and assessment system, targeted professional development, student support, and engaging families in the learning process under that. And then in this one, we talked about action plan areas, you know, in personal growth and curricular and extracurricular experience, expanding that student experience. And again, my own question is, and I think we talked about it last time, is STEM called out, not called out? Are we okay with that? STEM could also go in right below here as a, you know, as how we say that's what we're going to focus on.
Are we gonna call it STEM or STEAM?
STEAM, I think is what we talked about, I learned, and I'm good with that. So that's what we have there. The next one is employee experience, and using the input you gave me, I just drafted this, we haven't talked about it. Inspire and engage all employees to feel supported to meet our mission for all students. I don't know if that's too much work focus and not supporting the person, but I actually, when I think about what engagement is, that's, again, best shot, we can rip it apart later. Here we have one big Strengthen staff engagement is the overarching strategic objective by implementing a comprehensive employee recruitment and retention plan. So we're looking on employee recruitment and retention, and to do that, to focus on this plan, it has 4 arms: compensation, benefits, ongoing engaging professional development, and fostering an engaged, trusting work culture. And I'm the first person to say, at one point in time, D was called out as a number 2 in and of itself, and I think that's something we want to just weigh into and think about. Is that big enough that you want to call it out or have it be a D? I don't know. It's something to think about. So much to think about. Community experience. This one, we just had a little bit more meat on the bones, I think. We talk about the goal to inspire, engage community stakeholders in support of our mission. So how are we working with our community so that they really understand what we do? So the first part, I mean, I guess what I'm gonna say is, number 1 is a push out. How are we communicating outward? And then the other one is, how are we bringing in, right? Number 2 is, how are we extending partnerships that bring people in versus outputting, right? This is, reciprocal, bringing community in, enhancing student service opportunities so that there's that connection. So that one has 2 parts to it. I want to be really careful, and again, I just am always mindful of this, and we have to not overpromise and underdeliver. It's not like we have a dedicated communications professional, so we have to be really careful about, what we are saying we can accomplish in terms of that, but I think it's important to consider. And then I do want to have just a brief discussion, and I just put in the changes, and by the way, these are on the sheets that you'll work on. And the next one, and it's not that it's light because of that, we just haven't spent as much time on it, and I think in, whether we call it operations, finance, facilities, it seemed like we came into 2 big buckets, and at the last time they were maintaining fiscal stability and planning for future district needs. And I'm gonna put a nickel down, and if you would disagree with me, I'm totally fine with that. I think that's operationalized here. But I am always concerned that if things go in a different direction 5 years from now, and you don't have something about facilities in there, and you put it in 5 years from now, people might say, oh, you just put that in to pass a referendum. I worry that it sets us up for failure if we don't have it, but the processes to determine capital needs and fiscal stability, I think, are pretty sound here. So, ideas?
I'm just wondering.
Yes, please.
Since we have somewhat identified that they are very important, but they're operational in terms of you're already doing them, would it make sense not to have it as a 4th pillar that we're actually actively working on? We put it up at the top so it's not forgotten, like in this bullet point right down here?
And that's what we said.
Okay.
Yes. And I think that if we don't have it, we need to find a way to say that it's operationalized, that is ongoing work. So that to me is key. But again, it's not my plan, it's not my, I don't think there is strategic new work here. There is not strategic new work here.
Can we add wording about some of the fiscal stability things to some of our statements? I know we don't like the word deploy, but we need an attractive, competitive, and sustainable compensation model around
Yes.
a bunch of previously compensation models we have built.
Put it on there, that's a really good one.
Can we,
Yes.
some of the district future needs, as we think about the student experience, can we think about our facilities are part of our student experience? If it's about
Yep.
district needs for space or functioning classrooms, does that go, can we just spread the pieces into those other categories?
I think the answer,
That's
what
what
I
we
would
were
tell you
talking
is,
about.
that's a great idea.
And what Mary Jane was talking about too is from the community experience part. So
Yes.
when there's gonna be that time when we're gonna have to ask for something.
Great.
And if they're more engaged, they understand the needs, they feel part of it, they're more willing to say, okay, instead of, now you just slid this in and where
Right.
did this come from? So I think it's part of everything you do. And I think what was being said before is it needs to be highlighted.
Yeah.
It just needs, throughout all this, you can't do this without maintaining fiscal responsibility and continue to use district resources to meet student and staff needs.
And so I think I can try a hand for our next meeting, putting something in an opener, but your work tonight is to figure out what you want to embed in now what I think we're saying are the 3 pillars, right? What is that we want to embed in the 3 pillars in terms of that?
So
Yes.
right, I mean, as I visually like, right, you've got the 3 pillars. To me, it used to put on the top, to me, like, I've been thinking.
It could be at the bottom.
It's almost like the foundation, right? Each of the pillars are gonna crumble without being supported. I don't know, do you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it
So
supports
maintain
each pillar, it's not a
accessibility.
separate pillar, but it supports, it's kinda like the foundation, but I don't know.
And
Mary
you
can
talk
make
about it,
that.
you can.
Mary
put it
will
up
draw
as
it.
Mary.
Yeah, I like it. I like what you're saying. That it's not just verbiage up at the top, it's the foundation of what we have graphically at the bottom potentially. I'll put some things together that way. So I guess my question is now, this leads the work that you're going to do in small group around, and that sheet on facilities ops is over there. When you get to that sheet, it's what do you feel needs to be embedded in the other pillars? I'm gonna change the direction on that. How do we message this? I'm gonna change how do we message it? And what's key to embed in the other pillars related to this? Give me a thumbs up if you're okay and understand what we just said. Okay, so we'll change that. And by the way, I just wanna commend you. What great ideas. I love when things percolate like that, like when I think at the top, thank you. No, make it a foundation, that makes such good sense, such good sense.
Before we move on from this area, I just want to make sure we're focusing this pillar as a support pillar, right, as a foundation for the other pillar, which I understand that. The question I have is, are there strategic risks associated with, funding, development, facilities, the whole thing, that are not related to these 3 pillars, that yes, you can address certain things year to year with a budget, et cetera, but are there long-term risks from a facilities perspective that if we don't have eyes on it, would get overlooked in the annual budget? Whether it's an investment in facilities, in technology, things that, I don't know how long the annual budget planning cycle is, but something that just doesn't fit inside of that.
Can you answer, and then I'll give you my.
Well, Rebecca, you were about ready to jump in, and I think Rebecca and I have been talking about this.
So whenever we're having facilities discussions, and all of our budget discussions are about supporting the student experience, and so, and the employee experience. So that is, there is no conversation we're having about those things that doesn't include these. So we're talking about where we're gonna fit enough students, that's a facilities conversation. And so the last board meeting, we had here are 3 different things we could do, and what would be the length of time we would need to do it, do we have the money to pay for it right now? So I think if we put the words in, as Mary is suggesting, it says it's still there, but my experience of a year on the board is it's in every conversation about the budget is, how does this support us meeting our mission as we plan and as we fix the boiler, right?
So, yeah, adding to that, we do have a 10-year facility plan that constantly gets reviewed. So we're always looking at what the district has and what the needs are and what we feel should be done in a certain amount of time. And it gets reviewed by a committee, and we go through that stuff quite often on what needs to be done facility-wise.
So that 10-year plan, facility plan is sort of ancillary to, it runs simultaneous.
Yeah, yep, it just continues.
And I guess, then to answer the other question I was having, or conversation I was having with the community member is we were talking about replacing a boiler, we're replacing 4 RTUs, rooftop units, the parking lots. Those are all preventative and proactive measures. We have yet to have a major, Jordan, I don't think we can, outside of a roof leak, which we fixed, which is inevitable at times,
Yep.
is really looking forward and saying, okay, before things break, let's be proactive to make sure that we can continue to enjoy the community or the student experience, or look ahead. I mean, when we again, I'll say Mary, helped really vision about what we call our Curiosity Center, or our elective areas, our non-cores, the arts, the music, the STEAM areas, to really enhance the student experience, but that all comes with fiscal planning. So we drain down 2.1 million, then we have a plan in place to rebuild that, so the next time we want to do something, we can continue to do that. that. So that's, the state's gonna throw us curveballs, they always do, the state funding, but that's where the community engagement piece, and that we see with Arrowhead right now, is really trying to community engage about the needs that they have. Let's do that before we wanna plan a November referendum. So we're gonna have a conversation about,
You should make it clear we're not planning it.
we're not planning a November referendum, no, we are not.
Just throw that out.
We are not. But we do have real plans that say if we need to expand, or primary school, if we need to expand here or do something internal, those plans are already ready to go. Literally can happen within 6 months. Outside of building a wing, which we're told takes about 18-month plan from start to finish. So, we're in good shape, but those are, we go back to, those are, have been operationalized, and we continue to do those things as we go.
And I also
Good
want to say, I
question, good
appreciate,
point.
to your point, that that should be visible to the community, because other feeder schools in our district have other really big financial conversations going on, so it should be clear in here that we've had those conversations. I don't, to your point, I wouldn't want that to be hidden, or for people to think we're not doing that.
I like the question about
Can I-
strategic
That's a
risk.
good point.
I just think it's important.
Couple things. First of all,
Yeah.
I thought it was an awesome question, because it's always good. We live in the school realm, so getting feedback and other questions outside of the school realm is
Yeah, me
awesome.
too.
Did that answer your question? Because we talk a lot of school jargon too, and I don't know, sometimes it seems like a lot, but I don't know if that actually answered your question or not. I'd want to just make sure that it does,
Everything that was
because I like
said-
the outside perspective of something different. And so I just thought I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, everything that was said gives me confidence that the operational processes are working very well. My question was more about, are there things that those operational processes don't cover that we need to be thinking of? Like, I get it, stuff breaks, needs to be fixed, we need to, you know, but things like, we talk about the growth, right? Like 18 months, that's, you know, that's something that, it's outside of a single operational period, right, or budget period. So it's just like, you know, I don't know what the answer is, right, if there are those things, but it's like, you know, how do we know, like, do we have visibility to additional development in the school district, right? Like,
And to be honest with you, Ben, tomorrow I have a meeting with Applied Population Studies out of UW-Madison.
Mhm.
That's tomorrow. And then Thursday, it's MD Roofers, is another population study organization. You might be familiar with those guys, or one of those two. Those are the big school district where they take a look at what land opportunities you have, what hasn't been developed. They're gonna give you the analysis that says, okay, out here, the typical house is $500,000, whatever it is. A $500,000 house statistically will produce 1.2 children, whatever it is. So, at predictably, I don't know, yeah, they
I
do.
missed that in biology class.
Yeah.
It's, I know, everyone always laughs, and that is the number.
That's the jargon.
It's the point jargon.
That's what we look at. So then we are looking at what are those risks that we can't see, because right now, I can tell you all the developments that are in the works in the next 3 years. What happens after that? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But again, that's really where, if we want to, I'm gonna start to bring some, because growth is the biggest threat right now to the district. Do we have the opportunity? Do you grow too fast? What happens if you grow too fast? How does your budget keep up with that? How do you keep up with your facilities? How do you not get caught in a risk, a strategic risk? How do you get caught in that and not be prepared?
How do you prevent doing a bunch of stuff for growth and then
Not
5 years later it's gone?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's really where, I mean, we have that plot of land out there back in 2009 when they bought it. There are literally documents in my office that say, when we build a new school, when we build a new school. Well, we had 1,100 kids. 6 years later, we had 727. Thank goodness you didn't build that school. So,
Right.
how do you plan that?
You know, maybe, again, and this is the work that I want you to think about as you get into small group, is kind of to your point, maybe some of what occurs in this communication plan is having a number 4 that is, you know, help our community better understand our processes, needs, and, you know what I mean, financial, you know, I mean, I think that,
May 15th, that's
Yeah.
going out to the
I
villages
mean, I
and
think that
municipalities
may be
tomorrow.
a piece of what we may wanna, you know, because I don't think it's about not having the processes, but the risk to me is not having the community believe we have the processes. That's the more important
And I
part.
don't think the community knows, at least if we did need to still trigger on a growth plan right now, we can afford it without.
Yes, we can afford it.
Right, we don't, and that's, so we have
Different
real
than
options.
many
if we-
surrounding.
Yes, correct.
Different than many
Almost all.
surrounding communities.
Almost all.
Which to that point, our taxes went up big time because of Merton schools, so I mean, I'm sure people are thinking in their head.
Yeah.
For Merton schools and for the state, they didn't.
Yeah,
And
correct.
I
That's what we'll
understand,
talk about too.
But the common person doesn't understand
Right.
that.
And the many phone calls that I fielded
Right.
means why, that's why we're gonna be preventative. And reach out to them, communicate as much as possible, get on their Facebook pages. You know, I got a list of people I'm reaching out and saying, hey, May 15th, come and join us, because by the way, the levy's going up approximately 15%. You're gonna wanna hear why, so.
But the community still appreciates the incredibly low mill rate that we all enjoy, because everywhere else, including everywhere else I've ever lived, has been dramatic.
We are still, I do believe, the lowest mill rate.
Yes.
That we have, our tax levy is moving, that's really the difference.
All right, so now that we've got our heads in that, I'm gonna just count off. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. If you are a 1, you're going to start over there in student experience. If you are a 2, you're going to start over there in employee experience. If you are a 3, you're going to start over there in community experience. And if you are a 4, you're going to start in facilities and ops. And that task has now changed. We're going to talk about embedding it and what do we have to communicate, right? And I'm gonna set a timer, and we're gonna spend about 8 minutes and rotate. So that, and let me be very clear, your goal is by the end of this tonight, we wanna say, these are solid now. The strategic objectives and the action plan areas, they're solid. Is our hope and our aim. All right. I'm gonna put those. I'm gonna put those questions up there. So, as I see it now, the answer is, the question is, regarding
So one of the things that I wrote down.
finance,
Mary Jane's gonna appreciate you.
in other pillars, right? What is the wording or what is the answer was in other pillars? And maybe a sub-question,
Mine was something,
what is key
All of the other
probably shortly before.
for, I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
think so,
use
probably very close
key
to the time I was
holders?
born, just in case.
number one. So I kind of just said, well,
To know about this, you know, I mean, to know, or,
strengths and
and
employee.
then if anyone has any ideas,
All the other ones do.
how do we
Strengths and
message?
employee recruitment.
She's like, oh, we're gonna do it, but it wasn't a good time for this, and she actually just.
How do we message that? You know, I mean, is it how, is it like this? I don't know. Follow these pillars out of foundation, how do we message what they look like, so it
Where does
doesn't
professional development go?
I think a big
Does it go into retention, attraction? I know it goes into traction.
Sure. Go this way.
Yes, because that's one of the first things we talk about is the
If we don't finish clarity and I'm not worried about it, we can get back to it.
And the longer you're here,
I think that's the way.
you know, we still want to continue to
Right
develop
away
you,
to-
invest in you, and
Right,
things like that.
Right about me.
I don't know how that plays into it.
Right, whatever.
You know, when we start talking about engagement and trust.
Everybody's taxes.
Engagement to me sounds like we're gonna really engage you and get you involved in the work. So I kind of would, my idea was to put professional development in the number 2 aspect of the engagement and trust.
To me, it's so much less serious. It's the only conversation, and that was years ago. But that's the, that's the big thing.
that's like a parent. I was like, wow, that's fine. I had no idea. So clarity didn't bring back, physical clarity.
Fiscal processes, planning, I think it's both the process and the planning. The other thing that really doesn't understand is that time is priority.
You gotta know what you're doing.
In my mind, is where would it go?
Well, okay, I think fiscal speaks more to what we do.
Fiscal,
Or would they? Or both? Both.
fiscal clarity.
Around processes and planning.
Kind of bullet number one, where it is, offer engagement
That's what I
special
would
classes.
I think it's more of that, extracurricular and mission driven.
So the idea that
It could be not Steve as well. Extracurricular.
Right. So if we weren't voting for this is true.
That's exactly what you want to put on for us.
Employee engagement and trust.
Yes, mission
It
driven
says,
curricular.
you have too much of an asset there for us to give you money to afford to do this.
The joy of living in an affluent community. The challenge.
Yeah, it would be.
But they flip to see it as, this is a state instead of a state property of the community. That's why I need
And then all of a sudden, yes,
Saying fully
the pride of, right, this is the, if more people understand.
Yeah, I don't know how you word it.
Then
There's a lot of different
Tudor House
information
has
that is still down.
these things. I think that also, once your kids are ready.
Are we covering,
What's
covering
nice
through
is there,
of what the.
number of people, we didn't have colored carpet when I was in school, they got my colors. This one, actually, I think needs the least work except for this, because it's the most, out of everything we decide, the employee experience that we know is important for retention is the least elaborate. I think that would all piece of it.
There.
Well, I mean, it's coming out of the record too, right?
you always need that. We already just went to the street.
Use this other board to address it there.
I would, given it's,
No, there's a lot.
can I give you my opinion?
Yeah, but also-
Given that STEAM was such a big one in the last plan, I'd call it out, and then I would leave the other ones open-ended, because I think the other ones might change. What you're saying by putting it as a bullet under there is that we want STEAM to advance for the next 5 years. But we also want other things made based on the needs of students or teachers.
Oh, actually, I like what we'll do. I want the other two to just get enough, I mean, if you throw in other areas.
One of those metrics is trust in whether the, and that's what I'm thinking. If we say strength and engagement,
Well, look at it and go.
what are some of those? Year over year. Correct, yeah, those measurable things that are gonna say,
You pick out, all right, you pick out 3 from your employee experiences that are counted, and you're gonna mark those very heads of the building.
I needed to know, but it was another click.
Those are, I think, yeah.
so when I write these,
And then you talk to me and say, here's why I.
You have to click one twice.
Okay.
People don't come back to your original. Here's this, I clicked over here. If I click on something there, I'm never gonna get to the original document.
I just extremely.
How will we and the big thing I wanna tell you is,
Well, that's just.
That's
then again, I'll talk with you and your team about it.
What do you do with
Next week, I need to get out your calendar for. But I'm never a believer that you measure this one, this one, this one, this one, measure
Yeah,
that.
I'm just saying, but as a.
So you either need to measure the pillar with 4 or 5, or at most this.
Functional,
You know what I mean? You can't measure.
and if you streamline
you can't measure every single action plan
And
area.
make sure we get
And
out
sometimes
our
I think,
every semester.
I've worked with
community
board members that want that
things
one-to-one
are- Look for these
correspondence.
things.
How do we know we're so you'll have one metric here, I'm not being clear, but you can't have 3 for here, 3 for this, 3 for this, 3 for this, or do the math, we're gonna have 80 some and your dashboard is unmanageable. So it's almost like you pick the best, for each pillar you pick the best 5. You got 2 more minutes.
There's one really easy thing, there's a lot of them.
2 more minutes before you move.
Say here, essentially, we think this looks pretty good. Build that in.
Employee retention, recruitment and retention opportunities, you know, create and monitor compensation, professional development, and then strengthen the employee, strengthen employee engagement.
How do we do this? About how to reach the community, not like elaborating. And I think part of it is because we have ideas about what might help, but also really be careful about it.
Would you support, would you support making this one a different, like a number 2?
That's what we would kind of want to do. Because, hey, all the other ones have 2.
We think this is.
We actually do.
We think that this part should make sense. We should do something here. Ultimately, we think this is the most elaborate.
Most money, they have a lot
It
going
is.
on together, trust me.
We asked the most survey questions on it, we knew the most.
Thing too is that,
And it's really
you're
easier to collaborate.
addressing
because
the
these
tangible
are
versus
communicate
intangible,
people
really,
and give
really
people
what
an
you're doing.
opportunity.
The
Funding
intangible
issue,
aspect
there's not a hiring issue.
You are all right.
the inclusive aspect, like one, you get investment
Almost ready to move.
So we want to strengthen the employee investment in their role, their job, in their, you know, position or whatever, through, you know, fostering engagement.
All right, time to move. So we're moving this way. And my facilities friends, my operations friends, you're coming over here.
Okay.
We're moving, we're going there, there you go.
Fostering the employee.
Is this?
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
You guys are supposed to leave.
Yeah, you're cutting in there. I lost my thoughts now.
You have so many great plans.
Yeah.
My question is there a map? Is there not a map?
This is where, oh, I'm so happy. Tell her congratulations.
Well, the rest, they're in charge of the rest.
Yeah, Ben, I was just gonna say, I'll have to just cross that off and write it in a different color.
Yeah, right?
That way we just take credit for it.
Ball it up and throw it away. She did say right different colors.
Well, I'll let you sit, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, boy. This is the one I have the biggest trouble with.
I think this is how.
So, I was getting up in here, so I understood halfway first conversation.
Is that upcoming conference?
I'll do something noticeable.
Noticeably different. There you go.
That's the way I would.
Good, yeah, I don't know. So here's a, number one, this little first bullet in there belongs down here. The promotion of the brand.
Yeah.
I think it's, I like it, I like what it's getting at, I think it's ambiguous and needs to be clarified. But I think it does something like that.
Oh,
They
so
rearranged.
they're taking the treasure.
I don't care. Please don't spend like 5 years figuring out how to send
So
it.
this group, the group before you
No.
decided
I mean, I don't
to
know
take
what
this and make it
streamline, I get what I need to
take
do
this
today.
fourth bullet here under number
I
one
don't,
and make, call it out as a two.
to me,
And their rationale, which I think is a
whatever you
good
do
one,
will not
in
be
that
done.
all of them then have two.
You can.
So teachers will, as staff will feel, do we have, is there less work to be done for us? And I think that that's true, right.
Departments
I
and.
thought that that was a really good comment.
And I like the employee investment,
It's gonna take.
it's that reciprocal thing again.
I don't.
Yeah, write it,
As much as the
like the
stuff
wording,
that's going
like the
out
word
one
investment
way,
or something like that.
it's
And I think,
no-
again, it's just from the outside, from the
Thank you.
community.
You can
Yeah.
have a staff and you say, all right, we're gonna go from smaller class emails to just class emails, right?
We all have that lift.
You've achieved that, then you,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Because we can quickly pivot to say, hey, nobody likes smart, go back to email, because that's what we heard. It's just state of emails. They talked about the frequency of them. I think there's some things that we can invest in that are outside of communications, like employee engagement, you know, bring back a quarterly newsletter, or, you know, we're gonna invest in.
I would say
something.
you, like, what, it's getting details of what I would say is, track those emails, track emails, keep those coming, all that stuff that's coming from the front office. Just leave it in the box, just on that part. That's my ideal situation. Give me all that info, don't take away information, deliver it to me. Where I care about what the shop's saying, and if I get time, I'll do it, right? I'm on this teacher, right? So if there's a way to like, make that easy for them and automate that, then that would be something, but I feel like again, that's something that can be done.
Well, in one of the things that we're kind of in those, it would be easy for us to do, we have consistent communication across the district. So, Ms. Shaw, she may communicate with you every week.
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon, okay, Sunday without fail. Who's the other? Correct. Once every 4 weeks, so that's kind of one of the things that we've talked about is shop goes once a week on Sunday
I'm good at
afternoon.
verbs, yeah.
But
Correct.
it's not 5 years.
I've done so much of
No,
this, these
no, it's not,
strategic plans
but
have
it's
been verbs.
streamlining, but it does take us some time. With a stroke of a pen, we can say every teacher is to communicate once a week. Sunday
Yeah, I was gonna
at
say,
2
don't tell
o'clock,
them it's
or prior to 60 minutes, right? Because that's the number one time, correct? Well, what happens to the you know, does the Phi Ed teacher do that? Does, over
3
here,
more minutes.
you have 6 teachers. What does that look like from a communication avenue? So, from a district standpoint, that's why at least it's predictable, that you're gonna get a principal communication once a week. And whether that has to happen or not, maybe not, maybe we need to go every other week, but what is the expectation? And what do we wanna put out?
Professional development. Right, exactly.
Promoting it, yeah.
I said something.
To me, that's what it says.
Yep.
Sounds like, yeah, it does. Yeah, offering is your, yeah. Jump to financial.
Plenty.
I did appreciate the reduction, because it was something, flyers and s'mores. Like,
We have tried to just,
they've come down, but, and which I'm happy about, but it's, so the back of my thought.
They put a lot.
Back of mine is,
Yeah.
now there's something I am gonna pass, right, and it's like, you know,
putting it, you know, here are the things that we're gonna put in everybody's agenda, right? Send them a template, right, and then you put it in the box, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
And how you do it doesn't matter, it's just, but streamlining it in one email.
And then how are we doing it?
Them,
It says we're
you,
fostering it, but like how?
That's not our job.
That's
That's committee's job.
you know, I think
Because
that's.
that'd be my, how you
Yeah.
sending out.
Yeah.
Because it also goes
I
on.
can't argue with you. Yep.
No,
I'm coming.
village communication isn't enough.
Well, and there's always this lot of things.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, it's so important to have, this is easy to come up with, I mean, this is a math equation.
It is, it is.
This is a pretty good.
Yes.
So what I'm doing right now is RBL is.
But you need more of this, how do you do that?
Yeah, can we give them something?
Yep.
That's what, I mean, how do you do that without money?
Right, how do we, how do we give boards, so for example, guidance to do this?
It's truly, it's, no, but
Yeah, and they're limited on what.
either because if I needed to know when the soccer camp was or the baseball camp, I would have.
Yeah, it is.
It's an information dump that, we put there. And again, for some families, like, that's fine. When we doing this summer, I'm going to the Christmas thing or whatever. It's not, because we've talked about, you know, when we talk about strike,
You don't want to
it
do
would just be one Christmas.
that we to give them.
It's the primary,
Yeah.
like primary, quick and immediate, you know, so it's just, it's just one email and you can control it.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't wanna get rid of any content, you know, but.
Do we have some of it?
It's work to be done underneath that.
That's my only consensus, is the community student service opportunities. Does that go for student experience or is that?
Now, under this,
That's why.
Well, we do.
so there needs to be a.
Right, that's what I mean.
24, 25, max, 24, 25, you know, I mean, like, what is it that we're doing? Similarly here, what is it that we're doing? How can we do this in a way that, so it's almost like now we're how it's stated. All right, let's move to the next one.
So.
Especially with
Yeah, I mean, you should get.
So, these,
Well, now we gotta kick them out.
the two groups before you have
All right.
made the decision. I mean, they're recommending that they are taking this and elaborating it as a number two. And the reason they're doing that is twofold. One, to call it out more since it's kind of lost. And secondly, and I do believe this is a good thing to do.
It's interesting to take kids year on year. Yeah, it's a period of year, you look at it.
Yeah.
Because I've read every single comment. This is a bigger weight than anything else. It's very hard to do. It's the biggest, it's very hard to. I don't agree with you. I think that might be a mistake, and I'm okay with not having it. But it should be called out. It's a good, it's a good habit.
I'll probably won't handle all of them.
So I wanted to just explain to you here. This, because we just had a little bit more information on this one. So next time when I come, so like, the other one just goes to these action plan here. Implement, you know, and this one goes into more detail of what that will include. We're gonna actually make some recommendations next time around. So for example, under, support systems for all students and student experience. What is that? What's the key work to be done there? I mean, you know, 24, 25, implement math. I mean, you know, I think we're gonna start to get some.
For community experience.
No, that one. This already has some, so start looking at, are we on the right track? I still am thinking now, based on fiscal, how do we want to get that sense of helping the community understand our fiscal needs and the processes or whatever, I don't know, but something's gotta be there.
I know that this has come up before on this topic, but we've done newsletters before as a district. Like, can we include whatever our operational or strategic fiscal planning for the facilities are
in a yearly update to like the community. So,
It doesn't have to be detailed, just broad, this is what we did.
right, this is what we know,
Yeah.
this is what we are thinking about.
I'm on the rules of placing ground promoters and like that, I have Snapchat. But I mean, there's certain people that see that as well, and it's like everything.
What if there was like a quarterly,
I mean, and that's me, I'm weird about it, because I love what I do and stuff, but
but
there's just so much more that goes on here than
Something.
in the classroom days.
And then be done with it because,
But,
like,
I'm
otherwise, you're
the newsletter.
taking the,
fiscal clarity around process.
or not in that way.
Maybe we just add to this
Harder to,
a time,
the pillars, for what they are. Tangible versus intangible, right? Oh, and also, we have to pay for everything.
that includes,
I
right?
think when I think of
Financial
facility,
section.
you know, or student, you know, because one of the pieces that we don't.
Financial, financial and facility.
Kids are really fired up in 5K about school by the time they're in.
Facility is huge for people.
So one of the pieces that
Like the most times a hundred
research is,
Well, yeah,
what
but
is
if
your
people understand
student
how to
spaces look like?
continually maintain a house,
Furniture,
you
you
have to do the school,
know,
and
what's
it's
your
time.
visual, it's like we invested, I mean, upstairs in the learning room that was built around students, what do you guys want? We want flexible, we want to feel, like kids, okay, let's get booze, let's get coffee, cafe, too, so that all comes with a strong facility, which enhances the student.
It's like,
experience
it's up to the
just for
parents
being.
enough to reach the whole community.
As a mailer or something,
I
like
mean-
that one, like
Yeah,
This is what
essentially.
21st
We
century
used to do
schools
it,
are building.
and I know like my mom got one, she's in
So
the
you
country
can-
area,
we
she got a
built
nice
it.
one, and
This is
we
what
went through it.
furniture
Yeah,
looks like.
yeah,
I
nice.
love it.
I love that he gets from high to here.
Yeah.
So-
I even got stuff from Hamilton because I'm in Lisbon, so I can have
Okay,
it.
yep.
And I like reading it there, even though I'm not taking it.
Well, that's blue, or they can say, should we do that
Yeah,
here?
compare
That's what I think.
I always,
That is.
And I know we used to, but I can tell you that I have been receiving these funds in my inbox, or in my. So, you know, I've received my mail, my house got tired. Since like late 2020. And that's. You know, whatever.
We have those.
Exactly.
You know, like the
Yeah, I mean, it's
I think that's when it's.
And it's not, quite frankly, necessarily new work, but it's, that's what we're doing to that end. Similarly, and this
Like,
is
that's
what
the
Larry
unique
was trying to
thing,
get to.
right?
There were a lot of comments about special education and youth talented, but I don't think you want to just call out those two. But that would be, I think, in a simple, in that, what are the needs of our kids?
Makes sense. That one.
And I know that's a hard.
You know, nice request.
It's not enough to reach so many communities. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're looking for places to put
Yeah,
facilities
exactly.
in.
You gotta know, which people manage the rest
There is no.
around here.
So
If we don't
when
have
you get
kids in
an
our
email,
school, then.
We're gonna spend
You have to go look for it versus it passively coming to you.
yeah,
like for instance, a first grade classroom, new furniture is $20,000, so we invested $20,000.
I love this.
And that's not a lot of furniture.
It's not a lot of furniture, no, and on what we're hoping to
Yeah,
provide
it's
is
not, it's
collaboration,
just to have such an
engagement, excitement,
For all students,
which we
His
hope
dogs
will
read
increase
with
the
kids
chance
and stuff.
takes them out.
Kids are struggling with
to how nice
I think now we don't have the struggles because the teachers are doing animals. The dogs can't do it.
It's unfortunate because I learned so much more from it.
Oh, yeah.
Like my happiness.
We're supposed to.
Right.
It all depends on your workforce. If you don't have a collaborative workforce.
I bring it with me, it's like, he always comes with me, and I leave after work. I said to him as I walked out,
And this was a, this is a dog trained to do that, to go into school. Things like that.
Exactly.
So that's something to me, I think that was such a cool program, that even at Arrowhead,
No, I know
it's
what
not,
you're
it's
saying.
been 40 years now, but it was dogs and they let them pet. Yes.
Science behind that.
Yes.
You know, that's
yeah,
the
we
recommendation.
talked about possibly having something, explain to schools that you're not seeing so much of it. To get,
I do think something
you know, there's some people that think it's a lot,
That's right, because that gets into the
having a family like that,
Get that.
you know, like,
Can't we,
So again, do you, I mean, so don't go in that room with the dog.
Right.
Exactly.
We can put corrective options in place, so we can funnel.
I'm just curious,
It's just so hard to get.
Yeah.
I think the ones that throughout these
Well, and I thought we made it good. I mean, and I do. Oh, student service, like student service.
So I put a question mark on how is it, what does it mean? What is it?
So this is just me and this is me and my Pollyanna world, okay?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think of, you know, you have summer camps, and I mean, we used to do, open house used to be so cool here, because we used to have vendors and food trucks and music playing, and all kinds of things going on to bring families in and to make it feel more family and community oriented. Doing something, any kind of something, you know, that you bring community members in, you know, where it's, you know,
That might be something to start with.
yeah.
challenge the
Having vendors in and, you know, I don't know, somehow know getting it out.
I mean, 'cause we invite them.
All right.
Yeah, I would. Well,
I know that that's true.
Am I right? There's one more move? All right. Let's go. One more
They used to have
move.
that good one, smoking Joe's, and they used to have some, you know, some of our families. Well, and I think that the hard, whatever that is,
oh, that's
best of intentions.
oh, the carnival.
Yes.
And develop those kids, and in some ways, you to stay in a
Exactly, right. I may or may not.
come on, Mom, it's like dinner.
any agency, and we do that so frequently out of best of intentions.
Well,
Like, this seems totally unnecessary.
no, I think the whole sure.
Made the right decision.
From now on, we'll be open and rolling in the Merton. We have to make it up as we go. All the way though. We think just like together.
Has a visibility and we have some as maybe
And all the other stuff doesn't matter.
Well, you had some ideas to shape over classroom.
This is critical.
Is that, this is that on there? We put it on there.
So I, that's what I mean. Foster, so in order to make it really interesting work culture involves engagement. This looks like we have to build this because we have teachers who are not engaged.
What it means, like,
Yeah.
foster engagement, are engaged, are engaged in what? Maybe not engaged just with responding, are engaged in a job, like, you know, like,
This is, you know what I mean? It's just, it's good to get input from people that live in that classroom,
Fostering it,
instead of someone telling you what you're gonna do.
that part isn't.
You know what I mean? I mean, for me, that's not, that's personal.
Well, it's that,
Like, because that's the, you know, every day.
That goes back to this,
Yeah. Yeah,
anything and everything.
Sounds great. What does that look like?
So I think that,
You still have the alternate.
Every year, is there a service project? Like, is that what the service?
I would just go to that.
and don't be afraid of us, we don't have to agree with so much.
The academic, social, functional,
There's so many issues that come up, I think people speak up and communicate, you know, it does help all, everything.
We signed you up last time when you weren't here. We said, you did a great job of public speaking.
We're looking at the last bullet sheet.
I think everything's like this, facilities, the flyer,
Reads like, maybe they're not engaged. I think this is inherently excessive, means that you don't get a trusted work culture unless I just facilities.
So what people, what a group suggested is, is getting rid of this and making it a number 2, that is strengthen employee investment. And then I don't know what that looks like, but they said foster employee engagement through collaborative trust and positive promotion environment. So they're suggesting, and one of the reasons, and I will be honest, I do think this makes sense. Every pillar now has 2, and this one only has 1. It looks like staff is important, we have less work to do there, which I think would be totally reasonable. Bad message. And I'll tell you, right, after reading every single comment, this one is more important than the other 3. Offer, I mean, offer ideas, that's what, yeah.
Collaborative, trusting, and positive professional environment.
Yeah, yes. Yep. Yep. Reorder it. We're gonna work on the goals, the metrics, and the substance, but the substance of the are pretty administrative.
That's where we talk.
They're gonna weigh in on first, what's the key word? They know that, for example, math or what's up, they know that. So, the big thing is metrics, we're really working on, goal language and metrics.
How long is the strategic
I think that we will have a grid internally. We will have a plan on page like that, that is for public consumption. And then every one of these will have a grid that talks about what's the keyword to be done next year, how will we know? So, but that's internal now, and that will be probably 30 pages.
Like 5 years ago, it was a 20, but it was all, it was like the year 1, year 2, year 3. Like,
And we're not doing year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. We're only doing year 1. I mean, and then off year 1 and what gets done, then we'll start. We know what we need to get done by the end of the year. So what's the work to be done? And you are asking a really good question, and we're going to text on so that we see what that template looks like. So that we'll start with templatizing. I don't agree with that, but that's I think it makes sense in terms of push out and pull in. That makes so much sense to me.
I guess that we can have better communication, like, not 5 years of work, we can have a better communication system next year. But we'll need have a better communication system right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to implement the system, you have to see if it's working, and revise the system year two, and you have to see if it's working, and then a new way to communicate with people is gonna come out, and then you have to revise it to year three. And then we're all gonna be sending telegrams to each other, so like by year five.
2 more minutes.
We're gonna be doing like, go over your vision, material,
But that type of thing, you can certainly, in the overall quantification, it's there, yes, it's changed my life, like, it's just, the more, the more I focus exactly.
part of our starting small to service. Burial mound versus like go and see things in our community that they're not the community.
Stay where you're at.
No, it just was, you can certainly hear this one too, she was asking me how much trust.
Yeah.
Your staff feel good.
I mean, he. Yeah, or, I mean, it was right. I asked him if he was open, and he said, I guess, but. Just let me know when. Yeah. They're from down south, somewhere, in Wisconsin. He's about an hour south here or something.
All right. Okay, we're right on time. Things are good. Stay where you're at. All right, here's what I'd like for you to do. And I would like for you to feel, in 10 minutes, I would like for you to synthesize what is on the sheet you have, and on the blank piece of paper, rewrite it based on what you think is the best input we have, right? So that and what I hope is in 10 minutes, we can say, here's what we think student experience should be saying, right? And here's why I want for you to stay where you're at. I want for you to feel free to take this around to different groups and say, I don't understand this comment, right? Or I don't get this, or whatever. So give it your best shot where you're at right now. Make sense? Now you guys, I'm giving you a different task.
Oh, here. I thought we were getting out of this one, man.
So I think the biggest thing that I would, so I will make sure that the word sustainability is in something else. And I understand this and it's there. I don't get that one. Yes, that there's something, double check that communication has something about this. So I think that I would love this group to just start thinking about how do we message the embeddedness of this? You know, like that's meant to be a diagram. What's the wording in that foundation under the 3 pillars? What might be the wording there, right? So that
we
we
incorporate the operational focus
into that foundation, you know, not the wording, but into a graphic, so that when we do, here's this pillar, this pillar, this pillar, and what's underneath it, we have a horizontal piece at the bottom that is that foundation.
You're welcome, Tori.
Picture, I think, but what words go in the picture at the foundation? I bet you are.
Yeah, you are. Or you got
Stick people.
Already a win.
Yeah. Oh.
I'll give you 2 options. Sorry, you guys.
We have the picture, what are we gonna put in the picture? Right, what's the foundation that we have? Pillars are easy.
If you wanted to write on here, you could too. I mean, I don't know what I gave you, whatever works best.
And she's gonna put sustainability in.
Just worry about her spelling, we said there's spell check for that.
And this is sort of be like the multiple, like, so which one do you give up? Like, my child.
I thought it was. I thought it was.
An architectural foundation
And
of
like
like,
the district all in one thing has 3 subsections of.
Joanne?
Yes.
So on the bottom pillar, on the bottom foundation, you were talking just operation?
I don't know what that means to say. I gotta think about it, but I do think that, yeah, I agree, mission at the top, mission, values, and then the pillars, and then at the bottom.
You know, something from a teacher, so that you're getting primary principles more, Steve's principles more.
Share that, I just want to know.
Support our mission. Or we don't have to.
Work on it. I wouldn't want to work.
Grounded in our concern for
Support lifelong, support lifelong.
You know, and I wonder if it's mission, vision, you know, mission, mission, vision, values, so that it looks like a roof. And then the pillars, and then the foundation is fiscally, you know, fiscally sound policy and sustainable processes to guarantee sustainability, something like that. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? But that's where I'm thinking the foundation is all about, hey, we've got this. We've got these processes that allow us to have sufficient funding and keep planning.
lifelong learning.
That we have planning and
Professional.
we have planning and fiscal management at the foundation already. Something like that is what it is. It looks like the Lincoln Memorial and it should.
I'm fine with it.
Through engaging professional development.
You have community.
So this, we have as
Section that is like.
one.
You
And
got
then there's
family
so this
stuff
is
there.
really engagement and I don't know what the number 1 is.
Like 1 or 2.
This is one, these are
Get rid of this and
This
say
is two without
our
any
goal,
goals.
or our
I mean, that's kind of where I'm seeing it as.
implement,
That can be some
Yeah, okay, yeah, so this is still number two. Yes, and this is number two. Yes, and number two, which we didn't finish, strengthen and support employee investment in.
Are we done with this here? And then the rest stays, or what do we do?
Joanne, did you say that I could go bother other groups?
Okay.
You can ask them questions.
Okay.
These are the two.
I don't know if you just want to bother them to bother them.
I like to pull Jordan off the
Oh.
Hi, I'm like somebody else.
Strengthen employee
How
investment.
would your whole team speak that? So confused. So lost. Most of the calls are crazy. So community category, I think, you know, like everything has
I don't know how you're gonna.
one and then the rest. This is a category that's like one and then a and then.
Things are selling over there, it's important. Now that I think about it.
Do we have retention measures? No, no, I mean, really just about implementing safety employee.
Or is this really goal?
Because we already have this really in our goal, right?
Well, yeah, because you're just basically, A and A is maybe your 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Right, like do I
Is that what you're
get
saying?
rid of this and get rid of this and then.
One, two, six,
Well,
strengthen and strengthen and employee.
These are not new, right?
We want to basically strengthen. Strengthen. Yep. From what I
Get
hear.
rid of one, like there was strength.
I think
Five.
learning languages, not our, we need to like strengthen.
So there's a, you want to strengthen our retention.
Make it A,
Don't know why we make it A. And then.
We're gonna strengthen,
Well, all the
You
other
don't
ones have,
put A
well, all
is-
the other ones have one and two.
you know.
That's got
No,
one and two,
no,
that's
they
one
have,
and two,
but
that's
they're
one.
Yeah, you
missing
could
the,
get rid of
like,
A
the
on here.
third
Just
row
little
up.
A could go.
Yes, and we do
Yeah,
that.
I'd say my
right.
answer is
Take
yes.
this out,
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
it incorporate,
Right,
right,
but those little rows
yeah.
those become A.
I think you just combine them, already done those two, because this is how we're gonna do that.
Yeah, can we
Employee
combine this
retention.
into here somehow,
Yes.
just so that the community can go on?
Yeah.
Well, we want
Um,
to strengthen employee recruitment.
we're supposed to have
And
it.
then they implement comprehensive
Okay,
community.
so we're gonna have two strengthen.
Because we're gonna, you have to have,
By providing a simple
facility standpoint, you got it, if you're gonna do.
compensation.
I've definitely want to ask.
And
Yeah, you're,
That,
professional development.
really like to write a lot of big words.
That's cool.
that's where I feel like if it's going on here, and sharing that is gonna be different, right? This could be taken as.
Jordan's a thesaurus.
Strengthening a lot of things.
Right?
Every one of these, except for two.
That's that. That's the only one that does that enhance, because that's great, that enhance.
Through this, strengthen employee engagement. We felt really short in this piece. Are we really looking at what are goals here? We're really going to strengthen employee retention.
Correct. And then the next one is strengthen employee investment and engagement.
And number 2 is strengthen employee investment and engagement.
I don't wanna lose.
Yep.
That's the community
No, 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 this isn't so wordy in either. It-
Correct.
boom,
Perfect.
go.
Absolutely perfect.
And then we're gonna do that through fostering collaborative trust effort and positive.
You need a thesaurus.
Trusting.
Yeah, get rid of the So, get rid of this. Community outreach is one.
Trusting.
Community outreach is one. Outreach is 2. Broader families.
Okay, 5 more minutes.
So for the, I don't think the children piece, I think that is how, and I think that again is something that you do for plans.
Learning engagement. Here's
I'm not even real free and maintain.
building around.
But,
We're not going to be able to do it all once in 5 years. What are focus on year one.
Yep.
Okay, sometimes, and you want to focus on year one, too. Sometimes you focus on year one, and you're done. Some things you focus on year two, and year two, and year three, some things you need to together. And I always like to make sure that not too much. It's also nice to build a few things in that you can have some immediate needs.
We need to go after the changed.
Thank you, team.
Because you're like half.
Anytime, Mary.
You were the biggest one.
Strengthen employee investment.
That's way above.
I like it.
Right there, that's nice.
I love the parallel language.
And hits all.
Yeah, and I feel like how there's now 2 employees, like, that was obviously very strong survey data. Come back.
I think that's the hard part of a strategic plan, is sometimes you get hit over the head with comments, and people don't.
Yeah, I just,
So for example, I think about, like, there were many comments about we need to plan for future growth. I don't even think people know if there is future growth.
what would they say?
Right? Exactly. I mean, so and so you can't build a strategic plan just because it was said 84 times. You know better. I mean, ultimately, you know better. And that's, I think, that fine line of that.
Physical stability.
I can say we're still in.
Right. And they're working on it, actually. They're doing a nice job over there. Okay, I said it before, but now we really are 5 more minutes out.
So,
That's what practice for my writing.
So we did things like, things that passed, same with Stevens. They did the strategic plan, then building leadership says. This is what we're
Sorry,
starting
I
to build
don't know
now.
next time. Yeah.
And bullet things under.
Between now and then, I'm meeting with you guys internally around, okay, what's the key work and getting your opinion, and I'm also gonna get your input on the metrics, because I don't wanna pull them out of the sky.
I don't know, I feel like I'm operational.
I want you guys to give me your best shot on metrics. And then,
Personal not metrics, like the other, whatever the American
That's-
system, like is there something that you can do in 5th grade?
I love
in
you.
8th grade? Right? It's because I come to say, what something you think is like.
I don't know, I feel
I said I have an idea of it.
operational for
I know.
Because Bill was trying to prioritize what needs to be done, you know, with your remaining budget or remaining money, what do you know? Is this more important than this? I think prioritizing is
At 5th grade, we're gonna measure, I know how to. Such questions actually that one school. Survey. I know what it is. I have a trusted adult in outside my family. I know how to have a conversation with friends.
That's nice.
All of those kinds of things.
I'm just here for moral support.
no, you're not.
Well, you can't, of course you can.
And you're working on the wording that goes in, right?
It would not be easy. There are reliable, valid scales already built.
That's awesome.
Give us a.
That's great.
We're gonna
Prioritize future operational district needs, that's it. Just stop thinking about it.
It's not,
Fun, yeah.
it's not math. So it doesn't mean we're just comparing apples to oranges. So don't, you're not, that's not. what we're measuring.
Oh, additional resources.
Hey, can you look at that goal sheet over there and just see if you think that goal is on target
Oh,
or
I
not?
could get it.
Give me any ideas.
Yeah, I got. Let me, here, I'll. Let me just look real quick.
How we doing?
We have no goal improvement stock.
We like the goal language.
You like the goal?
We didn't put it up there, but.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna write myself a note on that. Goal okay. I'll remember.
Just right, okay.
Yeah. Just write okay then.
I think it's pretty, let's,
You guys are awesome. All right.
That's great.
I'll give you another one.
All right, let's get stuff posted.
I'll give you another one. I'll send you that.
Oh, that's all right.
I have another one.
I have another one too. I have another one. I actually printed that before. It's in my folder here.
I agree with this.
Oh, here's one right here. Here's one.
future operational district meetings.
Did you need another one? or-
No, I got yours up. Because I had lots of notes on mine, I didn't want to.
We had talked about was like.
I just have question marks on mine.
What is
Did I
your
rewrite
committee
the
called?
question?
Yeah, it was a budget
These are
plan.
still-
Facilities.
Okay.
Facility plan. There's financial. Yeah, facility is what.
Would you call that budget planning, like if you're looking at the trees and fiscal?
Facility plan. Facility plan.
Maybe it's, and I wouldn't list them, I would do comprehensive planning and fiscal management strategies and policies.
Okay.
Policies and strategies.
No, no.
Comprehensive planning process and fiscal
Fiscal.
management policy and strategy, something like that.
That's too many big words.
It is.
Okay. Should we just do engage? We want to inspire. We want to engage our community stakeholders.
Yeah.
Stardust and glitter.
That's the one. Singular.
You gave us that biggest.
And I know it's true, future operational district.
Yeah.
Prioritize future.
Can you just give me a gut, are you okay with this goal?
Well, you don't like the word inspire.
That's
but
true.
we think it's too like, luxury, what is that? Inspire.
I'm fine with that. You want to take out engage?
No, I want to take out inspire.
I said
Yeah.
engage community stakeholders.
I got it.
But it's a little like.
Something about the facility.
I don't have it.
Something about it.
Brian doesn't like inspire, so I was.
I'm fine with not having it, I mean, it's not like it matters if I like it or not, but I'm good with it.
I'll put my foot down on that. You know, it's inspiration's around here.
All right.
Everybody all right? Inspire curiosity. All right.
We're gonna go here, up top, and then the sheet you worked on, on the bottom.
We need that other one.
This one?
That one, yeah.
And then here, I'm assuming it says, I want to
You did the Merton. You guys have to see the Merton Lincoln Memorial.
Hey, I drew that on my paper, good job, I like that.
Here we go.
We just, yeah,
And that's what I was thinking, and then I was like, you could do the MCSD in the.
we enlarged it. Yeah, nice job, Stacy.
Yes, thank you. There was a lot of.
All right.
That's the weird one.
Come on over.
We're gonna stand with our body.
I think we need time to process this. We're gonna submit it on work it.
We're okay. We're gonna, here, I'm just
So,
gonna, it's
Ron,
okay.
how are our teams gonna screw up the draft on Thursday?
Oh, jeez. First of all, I don't have a team.
Let's stand over
I'm done
here.
with it. Steve, no longer with the commander.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
So you're just in limbo,
I'm just,
or are you a Packers fan again?
nope, I'm a football fan.
Football.
Back to college football.
There you go.
Hold on.
That's the only one.
Not those guys, but we got
So-
they're fun to watch.
Let's stand up over here. And we're going to run out of time tonight, and I don't want to run over, so I want to be really clear. We're back together on May 7th, and on May 7th, I might even go so bold as to say before May 7th. I mean, you'll have this all written up. But on May 7th, we're going to do a check and say, yeah, we're done with this now. All right? So I'm going to start over here. Our facilities group made a stab at a graphic that has mission, vision, values, and then the pillars, and then this is what we'll have to firm up. What is the language? And they said, you know, mission CSD is committed to maintaining fiscal stability and prioritizes future operational district needs through its comprehensive facility planning policies. Something like that. So, you know, how do we want to message that? But that's kind of the idea that we have on embedding that. First of all, to all of you and the group that did that, and thank you for penning it.
Yeah, I like the art.
So I'm going this way. Community experience. On the goal, they took out the word inspire. I'm okay with that, but I'll show it. What I'll do is I'll redline on what I send you so that you see what was done. Does that make sense?
My favorite, yes.
So I know, me too. So it doesn't surprise me. Engage community stakeholders in support of our mission. So we're going to implement a comprehensive communication plan to promote engagement with all, or enhance or promote with all stakeholders. And then those are the big areas underneath it. And I promise that next time I will bring a template of what this will look like when it's done, because I think we're at that phase now. And I'm just going to tell you, we are in the race right now where we are about to pass the baton to the administrators to fill out and come back with metrics and what those action plans are. I mean, we're getting close on this now. So I'm gonna meet with Ron and others before the next meeting so that we have kind of a sense of what that looks like. Because we're kind of in that, you know, it's not for us to say what the key work is next year in curriculum. It's not. So we need to be, broaden family, community, and business partnerships for reciprocal learning opportunities. And these are things we still need to think about. So, did anyone have any comments that they wrote here that were not incorporated or things that you want to talk about? Yes?
Yep. So the promote positive branding
Yes.
thematically belongs with the second one. The rest of number one is operational.
So here's where I'm gonna say the alternative to that, because we were the last group where we were trying to put those pieces together. We were talking about how number one is mostly about what we are putting out to people in our community, like this is what we are, how we are presenting ourselves to others. Where we saw number two is our effort to like bring the community into us, and we want them in our schools, and we want our kids developing partnerships with them. So that's how we had split out number one is like going out, and number two is coming in. And we did acknowledge your comment about, like, is it 5 years worth of work to streamline that communication? And I argued it's a constant moving target. So it is operational in terms of like, we should always be looking at that, but I don't know.
But it's never done. Like, whatever you do is not gonna be good enough. It's going to make some people happy, annoy others. It's like, it's just, to me, I wouldn't want to spend time, money, or resources on how many emails and what shape or form they look like, as part of the strategic initiative, right? I'm all about.
How does it get fixed then?
Yeah, we did get a lot of community
don't
comments
think
that this
it's
is
broken.
something that they're concerned about.
There was a lot of community comments.
Right.
And when you do this again in 5 years, you're gonna get the same comments, is what I'm saying.
I don't disagree that I agree with you that communication is always a moving target, but I believe that the comments would say that we need to do some streamlining, whether it's about dealing with redundancy.
Ron's already done some streamlining. Like this year, I know personally that my emails are better than they were at the beginning of the
But
year.
as a community member that doesn't have kids in the school, would
Well,
they say
but
the same
isn't that
thing?
part
You know
of
what?
it too? I'm
We're
all
gonna
on
stop
board.
now.
I'm all
We're gonna
on
stop, because we'll bring this back and have a discussion on it. That's what I need to do, is figure out where are the pain points right now.
Joanne, just so you
Yes.
know, from a student experience side,
Yes.
we took out the family part of the student experience input and encompassing and enhanced engagement with families. So you wouldn't see that in ours.
Okay,
We felt it was redundant and not necessary in the
Yep.
student experience.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and I do like the phrasing of, this is what goes out from the school and this is what brings people in, I like that grouping.
And I want to be really clear. I think that even though each of these has two, this is really big work right here. I agree that this is smaller work, but I think there's still work, would be what I would say. But I do believe that not all 6 are equal. And you know what I'm referring to, the 6 strategic objectives. This one is, and they made, this is the recommendation based on what was here, and there was a lot here. Strengthen employee recruitment and retention by this and this